Welcome to the Paranormal Bedtime Stories podcast. I'm author Todd Chapman, your host. Join me as we explore the mysterious world of the supernatural. From encounters with aliens to sightings of Bigfoot, we delve into it all. I've experienced the paranormal since childhood and even had a near-death experience that led me to become a contact tour guide in Sedona, Arizona. Now, I bring you first-hand accounts from those tours and from individuals who I've interviewed. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell to never miss an episode. You can find my books in paperback and for Kindle at Amazon.com or by using the link in my bio. Now, on to our story. For the next story, it's important to know that the location was along a busy road and in the middle of the day. Oddly too, there were around 20 people stopped to stretch their legs or something. Apparently, they were not all traveling together. For as long as I've lived in the area, I've never seen so many people there. To have such an encounter in midday, with so many people walking around, and for the Sasquatch to be standing in the open, just makes this more remarkable. "Remember that day we pulled off to see what everyone was doing?" he asked. "Yes," I replied. "Well, while you were taking pictures of the beaver dam, I walked along the riverbank while looking down into the river for potential fishing holes. Remember?" "Yes. At one point, I looked up and across the river into the woods, and I think I saw a Bigfoot." Now shocked, I said, "What?" "Yeah. It was standing motionless in the open less than 30 feet from me. When I realized it was staring at me and we made eye contact, I pulled my head down and looked away, thinking to myself, oh shit. Wait, that was 3 years ago and you're just now telling me?" "Yeah." I didn't know what to say. "What else happened?" I asked. "Well, after looking away for a moment, I lifted my head and looked back towards it. It had moved back into the woods and was swaying back and forth from behind a tree. There was also a woman nearby that I called over to ask if she could see it too." "Right. I remember seeing her beside you as you pointed into the woods." "Yeah, that's when I asked her if she saw it." "What did she say?" "Well, she just stood there for a moment, then asked me if that was my friend. Evidently, she saw us pull up and exit the Jeep, so she had seen you," he continued. "After I answered that you weren't 9 feet tall and all black, she paused for a second while trying to comprehend what she was seeing. She finally asked, 'Is that a Bigfoot?' He turned towards her and said that he didn't know. When they looked back across the river, it was gone. Then I spotted it maybe 50 feet or more to the right. It was shaking another tree. That tree looked to be about 14 inches in diameter. The whole tree was swaying as it rocked it with just its arms." "What do you mean, its arms?" "It grabbed the tree and shook it, without using its entire body to force the tree to move. I can't believe you didn't tell me about this for 3 years, especially after saying you wanted to see one." "I know. I needed time, I guess, to think about what I really saw and if it really was a Sasquatch," he replied. That's the end of his encounter, but I'd like to add something to his overall experience. Whenever he was in town visiting during the 3 years since having this experience and before telling me about it, he'd crash at my place. Before going to bed each night, I'd download several Bigfoot encounter stories from different YouTube channels and set them to play on my computer in the living room. Some of them were over an hour long, and he'd listen to them while crashed on the couch. I can't say how many hours in all he consumed of other people's Bigfoot encounter stories, but I think they all helped him cope with the trauma of what shocked his beliefs that day. Even after he returned to Florida, he continued to listen to people's stories, and that gave him the courage and confidence to tell me what he experienced that day. Though it was a non-threatening experience, it still shook him to his core and challenged his beliefs. In the days, weeks, and months that followed, he searched his memories of any other times he may have experienced Bigfoot activity, namely, while deer hunting on his family farm in Indiana. This was prompted by many of the Bigfoot show call-ins he listened to by fellow hunters. For example, He recalls the time he heard what he always thought was a smack on water by a beaver's tail, but now wonders if it was a tree knock on a tree from Sasquatch. His mind told him it was probably just a beaver, even though he knew they didn't have beaver. Then there's the tree falling close to him, while he was perched silently in his tree stand listening for deer. He said it was so loud and close. It sounded like a huge tree crashing to the ground. It really startled him, as he didn't hear anyone else out there with him, and it was so sudden. When he was done hunting for the day, he climbed down from his stand and went in search of the tree. To this day, he's never found it, and that's confused him. Hearing other people call into Bigfoot podcasts and YouTube shows to detail their strange run-ins with Bigfoot and/or dogmen is helping to make sense of many memories he's had over the years while hunting.